Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay, and happy to welcome back to the show Carmelita Valdez-McKoy.
Hi, friend.
Hi, so excited to have you back here because we're talking James Bond and we're talking Thunderball, starring Sean Connery, Claudine Auger, Nikki van der Zyl, Adolfo Celli, Robert Reedy, Luciana Paluzzi, Paul Stasanino, Guy Dolman, Rick Van Nutter with Bernard Lee and Desmond Llewellyn. Based on the novel by Ian Fleming, which was based on a screenplay by Fleming, Jack Whittingham, and Kevin McClory, which we'll get into, and directed by Terrence Young, the director of Dr. No and From Russia with Love. So why are we doing Thunderball? Well, it's the 60th anniversary in December of 2025 here, and in spite of all of our efforts, we were unable to get the full Bond roundtable back together with all the guys. Everybody's got lives and lots of stuff going on, but we kind of completed the cinematic journey through the eras of Bond with all those folks. But during that, you and I had a side chat going about Bond and all this stuff, and I had no idea you were such a Bond fiend, or I would have had you in there. So I realized, like, well, we got to do good on that. I'm like, all right, there's two things we can do at once. We can't do the round table, but I can do a big Bond movie with somebody who's really passionate about it, and that comes to you and Thunderball here. So what's your background with the Bond verse and then this entry?
Oh, friends, I want to start out by saying I'm so grateful to you for this opportunity to champion my all-time favorite James Bond movie.
Ooh, bold. I like it.
All-time favorite.
Okay.
So my history with Bond is Sean Connery was my first Bond, and for, well, evermore, he's really my only Bond. And I've seen some of the other films, but it was kind of one of those no Connery, no dice. I've had arguments with people.
This is bold. I love it.
No, I am very like, no, Sean Connery is James Bond. Everyone else is just playing. They're pretenders. There's only one. There's in my mind. And I know I have not read the Ian Fleming novels. I know that Connery was not what Ian Fleming envisioned for this character, but for me, it's Sean Connery. He's James Bond. And in recent years, I've started to like do this like desensitization of watching other Bond films, and I've enjoyed some of them quite a bit, but they never quite feel like Bond to me because I just in my mind and in my heart and in my soul, it's all wrapped up in Connery embodying this character. So my first Bond film was Goldfinger. I saw it young, like, I don't know, maybe 7, 8.
That's a heck of a one to jump into at 7 years old.
Yeah. And I mean, just instantly fell in love with the character. And I love all those Cold War spy films.
I mean, fairly, that's probably the most accessible one of all of the Connery ones, and maybe every Bond movie. It's got all the stuff you think of when you think of Bond tropes, but it's also incredibly audience friendly because by then they had figured out the formula, I want to say.
Absolutely. And so after that initial introduction, which I watched with my dad, and then I think we went and saw some of the Dalton films in the 80s, like in the theater, and I would see little clips and snippets on TV of Roger Moore, but it was like, no, there's one James Bond and it's Sean Connery. And so then I subsequently would go on to watch Dr. No, From Russia with Love, even some of those later ones, the contentious Connery Bond films. But I think the first time I saw Thunderball, I was a teenager, maybe late teens, and loved it and didn't realize that it was one of the underappreciated Bond films. And then in subsequent watches, for a long time, Goldfinger was my favorite. And then over time, and rewatching and maybe just personal taste changing. I don't know what, but over time it was like, no, it's Thunderball. Thunderball is my favorite Bond film. I love it.
I'm going to make an interesting comparison
Please do.
here. Um, I feel like Thunderball is similar to Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Master. It has the unenviable task of following the super popular third entry, in that
Sure.
case, Dream Warriors. But if you just take it on its own merit for what it is, it's not only incredibly watchable, it's got everything you love about Goldfinger in it, and anything you might have liked about From Russia with Love or Dr. No in it. And it's all done in this nice 2 hour, 20-minute package. And I'm going to make the other bold statement that I think it's Connery's best performance as Bond outside of You Only Live Twice, which I happen to have always thought was his best version of it. I think it took him a little while to get it too. So we're in
Yeah.
fair ground together because I saw Thunderball early on. Connery was my first Bond, as I've told on the Bond series, and my dad sort of saw to that. And so we just kind of rented them, and then TBS did that whole constantly showing the eras of Bond. And so Thunderball would always come on, and I always found myself just drawn to it, for a lot of reasons. It certainly is not the theme song. We'll talk about Tom Jones later, because I hate Tom Jones. I don't hate him as a person. I just hate his music. I just don't do that original Richard Cheese lounge thing that he's got going on. But whatever. But everything else about this movie speaks to what I like in a Bond movie, particularly a Connery Bond movie. And it was years and years later that I bothered to get the book of it and read it. And I've read all the behind the scenes stuff, and we'll do a little bit of that here in a minute. But when I read the book, I was sort of blown away by like, wow, they pretty much just adapted it. And what's funny is to know now that like, well, Fleming was looking for something else to write. This was going to be like the ninth Bond book. And or the eighth full one. They had done like a bunch of short stories with Bond, and so this was going to be the ninth book. And frankly, he was out of ideas. And McClory and him and Whittingham had tried to get the Bond cinematic universe, if you will, started years before there was Eon and the Broccoli's and Saltzman. And they wrote the screenplay, and it didn't go anywhere. And so he went back to that and just built the book off of it. Now he didn't plagiarize the whole thing. Let's be real. There was just pieces. It was just an outline, more or less. But he pulled a lot of things together, this whole Spectre situation and the Blofeld and the nuclear bombs and NATO, all of that era of things, and the setting and everything the outline was there, and he just built it out and built characters through it, and didn't get their like permissions to do it, obviously. And so lawsuits for years and years and years that went on. And the ultimate settlement of it, just to put the fine point on it, was they would credit all these people in the writing stuff, and McClory would actually get production credit for this one, with the deal of he owns the rights to all the characters in this story afterward, but he can't remake it for 10 years. And it took him 18 to get it done. Maybe one day we'll circle back around to Never Say Never Again, because it's been a long time since I spent any time with that movie. But that's how we got here. But I read that book and I was blown away by like the only thing that they took out of it is why Bond is kind of going on coalescence or convalescence, I should say, at the beginning of it. It's in the book, he's so strung out from drinking and partying hard all the time. Like, you got to go fix that. And this one, it's much more heroic. He got beat up really bad, in an assassination attempt, which is much better, I want to say, because you don't need the guy to wake up with a hangover like he does in the book. But I was blown away about how close they are, because if you read the Bond books, like there's always like pieces of them that make it to the movie, but the further they get down the line, in particular, it was just more like, we're going to take this piece and mash it together. They don't really translate them.
Sure.
Yeah, but this one again has all the same stuff that I love about Goldfinger, but it's just ramped up a little bit more. And I'll go back to my Nightmare on Elm Street comparison again. Dream Master is just Dream Warriors again, but it's just 211. So, and if you watch it, I think you appreciate it more that way. And I say that about this one too. So you and I are both champions of the Thunderball as it was. And plus, it's just a cool ass title, right? Like, this is cold, man. This is a great, great word.
It is. And okay, I do enjoy the theme song very much.
Okay, fair. I mean, everybody likes their own. I just don't. So.
I've been listening and singing along to it at the top of my lungs for 2 days. Just to get in the mood.
Mhm.
No, and I'm with you. I think this film it has all those elements that everyone else's favorite Bond films do,
Mhm.
but it does. I think this is a sweet spot for Connery. He's only a few years older.
Mhm.
You know, he's in mid 30s, but
Yeah.
he really in this film we get that he can be kind of suave and polished and put on the nice suit, but there is a ruggedness and he's this looks like a man who's living this life
Mhm.
with all that entails.
Yeah. Well, he's been through the ringer. Like we've seen
Yes.
him. His car's been through the ringer. That opening scene, the Aston Martin's beat to hell because he's just pulling it out of the Goldfinger episode, more or less, you feel like.
Oh yeah. And so
I've-
he's just his physicality, the action
yeah.
sequences, and everything is just bigger. The audacity
Hmm.
of some of these action set pieces and the underwater sequences,
Oh, yeah.
they really went for it in a big
Oh,
way.
oh, they totally did. And I'll only say this about the theme song. If I didn't know that the Dionne Warwick Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang existed, I probably wouldn't think anything about it. But the fact that I do know that exists and I've heard it, I'm like, oh, that's just so cool, man. Like it's hard for me to get over that. But for real though, this isn't even in my top five of Bond songs. It's maybe the top Bond title of all time.
Yeah.
But it's not my top five songs. But talking about like, and I know we don't just judge movies by how much money it made, but you need to know like how big of a hit this was, folks. They made this for $9 million, which is a lot of money, in 1965, but it made over 140 in the box
Yeah.
office. This thing was bank the whole way. And that is not a small feat. And I mean, all these movies in some way or another have made tons of money and they've done quite well for themselves. But this one in particular, I just absolutely, crushed it because you got to remember that they spent, $3-4 million on Goldfinger and they got, almost 200 out of it or something. So they made a lot of money off of that one too. And then when you look at the box office, this even got higher when it was all said and done, if you adjust it all. So I just think that's neat to know that this is when Bond was such a part of popular culture that it had taken hold. Like it took really 3 films to get it there. People liked Dr. No. People really liked From Russia with Love, and I like From Russia with Love, but I won't sit here and tell you that it's action packed because it's not. It's more contemplative. It's much more spycraft. And if you've known anybody that's ever worked in that space or anybody who really has done it, you come to realize how freaking boring that work is. I mean, it really is. It's a lot of sitting around and reading things and taking photographs and talking to people.
Sure.
It's not an adventure. This, on the other hand, is a total adventure from the jump. And I love that about this movie and the fact that, they brought this out at Christmas, which is wild. But you know what? Think about like all the freezing, people in New York and in the up and down the East Coast and stuff because that's where your biggest audience was in the '60s, and even people out west, it's colder.
Well, and in the UK, in the home country of the James Bond character,
right?
yes, freezing and wet and
Yeah,
cold.
it's terrible. So you want to show a movie where we're in the Bahamas for 3/4 of it? I'm game. It's the escape of the movie, right? That's what I love about this is that it is such an escape. And again, I've always found this one to be so much fun and so into. So I'm going to do the plot summary here that we can get into this thing because there's a lots of ways to attack this, but we'll go around the horn with it. So Spectre orchestrates this daring plot to steal 2 atomic bombs off of a NATO Vulcan bomber, and led by number 1 Blofeld and executed by the ruthless number 2 Emilio Largo, who wears an eye patch. This is the Bond villain of all time. This plan involves impersonating a high-ranking French Air Force pilot. That's changed from the book, by the way. They just paid the other guy off. And using a doctored corpse to fake a plane crash near the Bahamas. So when they assassinate the real pilot, they get the double to go on and take his place in the mission. He hijacks the bombers. He gasses everybody on the plane. And then, of course, he's already held them over the barrel for a lot of money. And then he does it at the very last minute, too. And they acquiesce only to make sure when they're getting the bombs off of there that they cut his air hose, which is so villainous. And it's Largo who does it, of course, right? So they go and hide the bombs aboard Largo's yacht, the Disco Volante, another great piece of just word play here.
Yes.
And they, get the ultimatum to the Western world. They're looking for 100 million pounds in diamonds, or one of the bombs is going to get detonated in a major British or American city. At the time, that's like $280 million. This is a lot of money. So MI6 learns about this. They immediately deploy Bond because he's already run across some of these people along the way. He was recovering at a health clinic in the Bahamas from a previous mission, and he finds this missing link between the bombs and leads him to Largo. So he poses as the wealthy playboy version of himself, and he gets close to Largo's beautiful mistress, Domino Derval, who is unknowingly wrapped up in this because it was her brother who was the pilot that got involved in all of the stealing of the bombs. So Bond discovers that Largo's the man who likes to play high stakes games, and he's got this grotto filled with sharks. This, again, every Bond trope in the world is happening right now. And he's got this great henchwoman, Fiona Volpe, who attempts to kill him several times. She ends up killing another one of the Spectre agents because he's such a bumbling goofy named Count Lippy that we get to. All along the way, Bond is trying to get inside information, and he finally reveals the truth to Domino, who vows to help him on his mission because she's also getting beat up by Largo all the time too, which sucks. And so Bond uses his expertise in underwater combat along with some of his friends from the CIA to go to this massive battle where you've got all the Spectre agents and all the good guys from the Navy and the Navy frogmen, who are the precursors to the SEALs, basically do this whole underwater battle with spear guns and knives and sharks running around, all kinds of stuff. I'm surprised they didn't have a shark with a friggin' laser on it. But they finally, disarm the bombs. They foil Largo's plans. And during the chaos, Largo attempts to escape on the Disco Volante out of a hydrofoil that comes out of it. But while he and Bond are fighting, Domino sneaks up from behind and shoots him in the back with a spear gun and kills him. So with Largo dead and the bomb safely recovered, Spectre's plot's completely thwarted. The Navy secures the two bombs and ensures the safety of the Western world. And Bond and Domino are rescued from the wreckage in a life raft, with the Royal Navy and the U.S. Coast Guard arriving to pull them away at the last minute. So lots of different things we can get into there, but I think the way to start is with the overall of what the plot is in this, and the Spectre plot. And I really love this idea. Because when we first meet what Spectre's up to, they're basically having like the office meeting where you're all having to go around and they have to give their financial reports. There's the two guys that are ripping off the drug money, and he decides to electrocute one, which the coldest part of that is that after they electrocute the dude in the chair, the friggin' empty chair comes back up. So that's, I've been in some intense meetings, but that was, taking the cake. But it's Largo's plan is like, if we steal these two bombs off this NATO plane, we now have atomic supremacy. We can threaten the Western world. We can, get all kinds of money, and it's really going to, flush us with cash, in addition to having two nukes, which, you might want to have. And this plays into all of the fears of the 60s, right? The Cold War fears about nuclear armament and everything we were going to. And I don't know, I just love it. I love this whole thing. I love the fact that they add the twist of, we're going to get an impersonator to take over the pilot because we don't want to besmirch actual military people would be willing to get paid off. We'll just get a double. I love all the machinations of that.
Oh yeah, Spectre as this shadowy group that is exploiting the complexity of the Cold War geopolitical landscape for their own financial gain.
Yeah.
And I love that when Largo shows up for the meeting, he goes through the building of this front, a philanthropic foundation that helps stateless persons, because this is only 20 years after World War II.
Yeah.
The devastation across Europe is still very fresh. People live through this. The bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, which is 80 years ago this year.
Yeah.
All of this is still very fresh. So these fears are very real.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Spectre, this shadowy, powerful organization that is just going to milk this situation for all it's worth.
They're like the modern day, 21st century thoughts about the Illuminati. And all these people they're really behind all of it. It's all these corporate bigwigs, and we've got this Bohemian Grove nonsense, and they're rubbing each other with blood and peanut butter and all that shit. I mean, it's the same kind of conspiracy theory idea, but I love it that there would just be this group back there that's just like, we're just in it for the cash. But we want it in every country, and that way we can influence in every election. We just kind of own the things, and they don't have any real political ethos other than chaos, which is because that is beneficial when you're a warmonger, and I love that though, because it's such a great conceit, and to see it so organized. A lot of times you meet these Bond villains and they have these great ideas, but they're all insane. So that's why they unravel, right?
Yes.
And that's what's cool about this one is like, well, they're not really screwed up. And this Blofeld character in particular is just, I've always loved that idea that this central figurehead that would be Bond's great adversary, that he would constantly have to go up against, at least in this area of Bond. I find it endlessly interesting to go with.
Oh yeah, and that he's, in this film, he's behind a partition.
Mm-hmm.
We just, the stroking of the cat in his lap, but we're
Yeah.
not going to see him full on because this isn't a man who shows himself. This is the man behind the man behind the man.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't have to. He's got all the power. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love this, and I think it's really well executed, and I mean, we do have to acknowledge this has been parodied.
100 times.
This introduction, that boardroom scene, parodied to death because you can.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you come back to this film and you put aside all of the jokes that it has spawned in parody form, that it is really cool.
It is. I mean, you realize very quickly with just like 2 minutes of dialogue going around the room for financial reports, which sounds really boring, by the way. And having had to do that a few times in jobs, it's like, this is the long day, right? Where we talk budget. That's always boring. But to have the bean counters sit there and tell you how you're doing, you get a sense of the scope of where this organization goes. And you also get a sense of their ruthlessness. Because you got the two agents that are in charge of smuggling the Chinese drugs into America. That's their whole thing. And they only return a much smaller amount of what they were supposed to. And Blofeld already knows which one of them is ripping them off. So you think it's the sweaty guy, but it's actually the guy sitting next to him. And he knows it. And he's like, I've already decided on action. And he electrocutes him, like I said, and he dumps him out of the chair and then brings it back up. And they just keep going. But I love what he says in there, too. He's like, this organization only works because of the integrity of its members. I was like, but you're all fucking criminals. And it's like, there's got to be honor among thieves, I guess.
Yes, everyone has a code.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be a code that aligns with the morality or the values and ethics of other groups in society, but everybody's got to have a code.
Well, I mean, I think about that in something in a movie like Heat,
Yes.
when you've got the Neil Macaulay character who talks about you don't have any attachments that you can't drop when you feel it coming around the corner. And ultimately his undoing, spoiler alert, is he gets attached.
Right.
And he doesn't let it go quick enough. And he also is obsessed by this detective that's after him, which is sort of this story too. You get this fly in the ointment that is James Bond that will mess with you. But now I love again the organization of Spectre and what their plot is. I love too what they go through to steal this plane with this guy. We got the actor that's gone through this, the spy that's gone through all these facial recognitions. He's learned to sound just like this guy.
Yes.
I mean, it's just him on it. He's just a double, but he side knife shoots him. That took me years to figure out what he shoots him with. That little zip gun. He basically just blows cyanide up in his face and it kills him. That's why everybody's covering their face for 5 minutes afterwards so they don't get killed. And that's when you also meet a lot of the other characters in this story. I mean, you meet Volpe, who's just a great henchwoman. I mean, we've already had good henchwomen in these movies, but she's awesome. But unlike Pussy Galore last time, she will not be turned. She is going to at all. No. And that's what you love about her is that she is so far gone down the road that you're not gonna touch her. And I love her, and I love Count Lippy in there too, because they're sort of assigned to this by Largo. So they're Largo's hench people, and you can already tell which one of them's the smarter one, and it's her by a mile.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. I love her character. She's she's got this kind of raw, dangerous sexuality that you
Mm-hmm.
expect, right? And this cold, calculating ruthlessness. And
Mm-hmm.
she's, I mean, really the biggest direct threat to James Bond's life.
Mm-hmm.
Because Largo is at this point a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
He pays other people to do the thing that
Mm-hmm.
needs doing. He's just shooting clay at his Nassau resort, and he's just not very there's like a kind of an apathy to Largo, this laziness. She is
Well,
get her hands dirty.
Well, he's the head
Oh
of
yeah,
he's the VP or whatever, right? So he's
right.
going to get
Number
down and
two.
dirty. Yeah, he's going to have his hench people do that stuff.
Yeah.
'Cause, see, that also plausible deniability. I'm just a businessman, with sharks in my pool. Pay no mind to
Right.
that. Which is a whole other thing, but that spoke to young Jay, who's a shark fanatic. So I was like, oh, sharks. But what I looked it up because I was just curious. I was like, what does Volpe mean? It's Italian for fox, and I was like, well said, because she's not in the book. Like she's just a nameless woman in the book. And I love this though because you get this dangerous redhead who kind of looks like she could be Domino if Domino had on a red wig.
They're very
They
similar.
are similar, and this one was actually tried out for that, and they gave her this role instead because they felt like she was more sinister, and they were right. She is.
Yes.
I love how she goes down too later on. Like they're dancing in the club, and somebody's there to shoot Bond, and he feels like that's coming, so he spins her around, and she's the one that gets
It's
shot
the
in the
best.
back.
I mean, we're gonna have to talk about the whole Junkaloo sequence because it's my favorite.
Yeah.
But I love there's the scenes between Connery and her when they kind of have their verbal sparring. I just
Hmm.
love it. And the scene where she reveals herself as a
Yeah.
Spectre agent. And he, of course, already knew he'd spotted the ring much earlier.
Yeah.
But I love they have this back and forth playing, bruising each other's egos. Him saying, I did this for king and country. You don't think it gave me any pleasure. And there's a
Yeah.
moment where she plays it, I mean, so perfectly. There is a moment on her face where she's a little like, how dare you?
Hmm. You know what? They play with that. They try to recreate that so many times throughout Bond history. The only time they
Yeah.
got anywhere close to it was the scene on the train in Casino Royale between Eva Green and Daniel Craig. When you've got Bond and Vesper going at each other, and they're basically have sized each other up at that point. It's the similar chemistry, but it
Yes.
took them years to ever get back to that. And you're dead on the way they snipe at each other. It's like, oh yeah, these two are gonna like screw, but they're gonna hate each other for it. Like, but they're gonna let them know, like, well, it wasn't any good for me. It was just the job. But I mean, but I love that though. That's what makes it so much fun. Because again, this is the fun, part of these things. And I don't know. I thought she was a great hench person. I thought Lippy though was also great, and I swore I was like, this guy's been in a Bond movie before, but he hadn't. He's been in a lot of other things. He looks like one of the guys in Doctor No, the professor that gets shot.
Oh
You've had
yeah.
your six. That guy. He looks like him, but it's not him. God Dolman's just this English actor. But I love his part of it is I got to replace the pilot with our fake pilot or whatever, and her job is I got to seduce the pilot so that we can kill him, right? It's because of course that's the role we would give her. When in reality, she probably would have been a lot better. And the reason she's dispatched to take him out later was like having this extra layer into this made it way too complicated.
Yeah, unnecessary. She
Yeah.
can handle the whole job.
Yeah. Which is, and also we didn't need this whole pilot thing. It's cool for us as an audience, but like Spectre realizes like this is unnecessarily complicated. We don't need this. And that's what's so wild about when they do steal the plane and it gets crashed, and that's a great sequence, by the way. It looks really good. It's great
Yeah.
model work. I mean, sounds, the whole nine. And they crash that bomber, and I love how the music when they get to the water just has this sort of dreamy little feel to
Yes.
it. I love the score in this. John Barry is in his bag the whole way. And I love when they're killing these people that the way they kill that pilot by cutting that air hose and you just watch that man drown in front of you.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
violent. Oh, it's
Brutal.
so violent. Yeah. So much better than lighting him up or shooting him or setting him on fire.
Yeah.
It's also incredibly personal.
Yes, absolutely. very, I mean, that's cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very cinematic
Mm-hmm.
because when the air hose goes, it's like all the bubbles come up through the water. It looks really great too.
Mm-hmm. It looks incredible because it, it's so you can feel that happening to you if you've ever been in a drowning situation or just been underwater too long and you get a little freaked out. You
Hmm.
just know we can all immediately relate to that. What I think is neat is that Largo, who is this hands-off guy, personally does this. It's like Michael Corleone shooting somebody in the face. Like it's
He
like, nope,
does.
I'm going to do this. That's cold right there. That's like letting that. He said the last thing I want this guy to know is I know you tried to screw me, and so I've got you.
No, you're right. There are a few times in this film, and funny enough, in the underwater sequences where Largo kind of steps up and does something directly. And he seems to enjoy he enjoys being in the water.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about this guy. I just sort of build my own backstory of who he was and things, and some of it's informed from the book and just knowing this movie so well. But you can see, like at one point, this guy was obviously an accomplished diver. He obviously had been in a lot of combat. He's got a friggin' eye patch, so he's pretty badass. He just doesn't have to get his hands dirty anymore, except when he wants to. And
Right.
that's what's so neat about him as a villain, right? He's different than the other villains. Like Goldfinger is no real physical threat to anyone,
No. No.
you know, at
He's just
all.
psycho.
He's just a psycho. Dr. No was also a psycho, but could have been a physical threat if he got his hands on you. But you got to get close enough for him to do that, right? This is different because this guy not only is incredibly intelligent and he has this whole network of evil to deploy, but he's very formidable himself.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. There is well, and it comes up when Domino is explaining to Bond how she ended up with Largo as her guardian. they they check into all these places. Everyone knows her as his niece, which
Yes.
is which is how you get around, the scandal
Right.
of, that she's his kept mistress. This is like almost like a sugar daddy situation.
Exactly.
Very
I mean,
transactional. But she mentions that when they first met, she was attracted to him then.
mhm.
And I've always kind of interpreted that as when he was more a hands-on guy, when he was more in the action, she was more into it.
Mhm. Big time. I mean, I love that. I love that they play that niche joke. The first thing my 20th century brain, later 20th century brain jumped to was like, oh, the joke in Pretty Woman. So, and I can't prove that they ripped that off, but I'm gonna think they did. But I love how Largo operates. Is he's all and all these Bond villains tend to be this way, but of all of them I think of, he's so extremely confident, but even he has a boss. And that's to me is
Yeah.
like this guy really loves gambling and all these risk things and stuff like that because he likes to have as much charge as what he can because ultimately he knows he still reports to somebody more powerful than him and it eats at the dude. Like I really think it bothers him that he is not the number one.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, and it makes me think of, people who work. You see this trope in cop movies
Hmm.
where the cop who used to be a beat cop or kind of on the street detective and then gets promoted to like a desk job
Yeah.
and they hate it because they'd rather be in the field and they've been promoted, so technically you're in a more powerful position,
Right.
but you're also not doing the thing that you got into this for in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you've moved up, but you've lost the edge, the thing that gave it to you, right?
Right.
I don't know. Again, I love Largo. I love his whole thing. The use of sharks, again, as a kid, totally spoke to me as the Jaws freak. So I was like, this is awesome. This is great. I mean,
And they're
nothing.
real.
And I know they get real tiger sharks in there, which is insane. So, because the thing about tiger sharks is their teeth are built in a way where they're like flying saws. So when they come at you, they're going to shred you when they hit you. That's their attack. They don't, like a great white or something that has big teeth and can grab you and tear you, but a
Right.
tiger shark just saws you up. and that
Yeah.
just sort of fits. I'm like, also it was probably what they could get that would work in the tank that they were working with. But I love that they get the live sharks and all that. So that's so much fun. Because he's so friggin' cruel too. And when he's showing that off to Bond, he throws the guy in the pool. I mean, how many Bond villains throw somebody in a shark pool? Right. But it is, and I made the joke in the plot summary. It's the thing that the Doctor Evil plays with. It's all the
Yes.
tropes are built off of it. But when you go back to the original, and like you said, if you set that all aside, it just gives you a sense of how ruthless these people,
Yes.
and that's the
Yes. The
thing about Largo.
ruthlessness.
Yeah,
Well,
incredibly
and
ruthless.
they
Yeah.
find ways to use it in the plot beyond just, oh, wouldn't that be cool if he
Hmm.
kills people with sharks?
Right.
Because later, when they're doing their reconnaissance, trying to find the bomber, the Vulcan bomber, there's, this area and there's sharks swimming.
Hmm.
And Bond is like, we need to look there. Because Largo's got this thing with sharks.
Hmm.
This is the place to look because this guy likes to have sharks to protect his home
Hmm.
and to use against people who wrong him or
Well, and you think Largo would have picked that out because it's something most people would stay away from. So he knows where the shark reefs are.
yeah.
And the way they've camoed those things, you wouldn't know they were there unless you were looking for them. That's the deal about the Bahamas, right? Is that the water's so clear, you should be able to
Yes.
spot them from miles away, but not if they're camoed and there's a bunch of sharks swimming around. Then you're like, it's just another reef, for the sharks. And it's also what probably brings the sharks there. Is they think it is too. And when Bond gets into doing all of the investigative part of these things and stuff. And that's, he meets Domino through this and all this. It's some of the most fun you get to see Bond have doing these things when he finds all this stuff, and he's swimming up underneath the ship and he's going in and out and he's on the estate at night and all this. I mean, it's pretty wild.
Yeah. No, it is. You get to see him do the spycraft. I love
Mhm.
one of my favorite scenes, and it's very quick. At one point, when he's returning to his hotel room, he comes into the room. He opens up a book where we see he has a hidden recording device
Mhm.
and he plays the tape. And we hear that someone has entered the room while he was out. And I love the camera follows. It's like he's mentally retracing the steps that
Mhm.
he hears on this recording to then, find the henchman that's hiding in the room. But just those little things.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen him like pull a greased hair out and put it across a closet before, and he comes
Yeah.
back and it's gone. Like it's all the little stuff like that. That little subtle stuff. It just lends so much credence to like not only is he suave and debonair and can be a great in a fight or whatever, but he's incredibly smart and has been
Yes.
and he's also experienced. Like at this point too, just cinematically, think about the journey we've been on with Bond. He's thwarted somebody trying to knock out the space race. He's thwarted, all kinds of Russian KGB operatives and stuff. He's thwarted somebody who tried to blow up Fort Knox. He's seen some stuff. And in the opening scene, he kills this guy who fakes his own death and dresses up as his widow at the
Yeah.
funeral, which is an awesome fight scene. And he gets the crap beat out of him for it, but he still wins. He gets the jetpack and all this stuff. So he's been around. And while he's got all the gadgets and all the stuff, it's still his mind that's his biggest weapon, and that's what's so neat. And you see him, he tries to turn, this Paula woman to him, and she rather than turn, she just kills herself. I was like, well, that's loyalty you can't buy if you're Spectre, and lets you know how
Yes.
deep they run. And it also adds stakes for when he gets to Domino, because Bond's going to turn her at some point. How dangerous is that going to be for her? And as it turns out,
Very.
quite, yes, very much so. But no, I love that. I want to talk a little bit about the Disco Volante though, because one, I love that word or that phrase. I think it's a great name for a boat, but it's such a neat, like, evil guy lair. I know he has his home or whatever, but I've always felt like Largo's lair is really that boat.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's pivotal to this story, right? That so much of it takes place on the water
Hmm.
and the bomber is hidden in the water and it's going to be the catalyst for so much in the story. And at the end, when we see that it actually like you can jettison off,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's got an escape pod. Yeah. I love that.
yes,
Yeah. It was
it's
so
so
awesome.
cool. It's really cool. So, at a glance, like, oh, luxury, a luxury yacht. Of course, this guy's filthy rich. Of
Hmm.
course, he has one of those, but it's also very functional.
Hmm. Yeah.
I love the name too. And it translates to literal translation is flying saucer, or no, is flying disc, but it's usually kind of understood to be flying saucer, which I think is kind of fun.
I do love that. That is great. So I know I love all the things about it. It's also a great place to hide bombs,
Oh yeah,
like that. And that's how Bond finds it. He's using like this little underwater Geiger counter that Q gives him, and you play with all that. It's like, oh, it's all the gadgetry's cool in this. He's got the little rebreather thing that they would use in the Phantom Menace many, many years later, or in a galaxy far, far away, however you want to take that, but I love all the stuff that he gets to play with here because again, it's all very functional. It's not a
yes,
joke yet. It's a trope, but it's all incredibly functional stuff and it's cool. And the way that Bond gets onto the boat and it all, I don't know. I love that the infight, of course, has to go down on the water on the boat. Like
of
we talked
course.
about, but I think it's neat that when he goes to Largo's estate, and he finds out that Paula's dead or whatever, and he's shooting guns with him and all this, and I know a lot about women myself, which is a joke for the audience, and but it's fun. And then that leads him to the Junkanoo thing, and I know you wanted to talk about that specifically.
Oh
I
my
love
God.
this sequence.
I think it's incredible. One of the most cinematic, gorgeous, just really kinetic scenes in a Bond film. And there's something about it that I was I keep trying to put my finger on what is it about this sequence. And I think that there's a, you know, realism, like neo-realism in Italy, and cinema verite, like all these things kind of happening around the same time. And there's something very raw and real about this sequence, the chase through the Junkanoo parade with the bands and the floats and you, which was it the episode with Preston in your Bond series? You guys were talking about had Bond ever been shot, and that yes, in Thunderball,
Yeah.
and and just everything about the way this sequence plays out, Bond lighting the alcohol on fire on the upholstery of the car to escape, being clipped by a bullet in the leg, and we see the blood, and he's kind of stumbling, and the music, the drum beat, and it's just built into the setting that there's bands with drummers and the floats and the people, and he's weaving through the crowd. And so there's all the noise of the Junkanoo, all the celebratory crowd noise, and the bad guys coming up behind and following the blood trail, which a million movies have done since. But it's just so stunning. The colors are so rich, and just the movement of the crowds and the people of them weaving in and out, and him trying to find somewhere to go to get away from his pursuers. I just think it's incredible.
I've always felt like the best Bond movies have a small section in them that turns into film noir. And
Yeah.
this is the noir section of this movie. Against all this color and all this noise, it's a great place to assassinate somebody because there's
Oh
so much
yeah.
friggin' noise. You have no idea. It'd be like, Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Like you have no idea.
No one's
Yeah.
paying attention to you. They're all drunk.
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody's drunk or high. They're not in their mind to think about that. Plus, they're coming for you and you can't do anything about it. And I love that. I mean, this whole movie is kind of built on this premise is that we've built this guy up to basically be this superhero all of a sudden, but now we're going to show you that he's actually human and vulnerable. He gets the crap beat out of him early.
Yes.
He almost gets killed on this back stretching machine, which is from the book, by the way, too. Looking at that, I'm like, no way in hell would you ever lock me up on something like that. Hell, I don't care if it did help. I'll just suffer. I'll just take Tylenol. But I love that he's gone through all these things. He gets shot. This guy goes through some hell in this movie, and that's what makes it so much fun. It's why I think it is one of Connery's best performances because he's such a brute and a strong guy, but when he shows vulnerability is when you really get to see the genius of the actor and what he can do.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, and I loved it. To your point, when we get to the Kiss Kiss Club, where they're going to have this kind of ultimate confrontation, and he he pulls that young tourist out for a dance, and she's got to be thinking, "Oh my God, lucky me!"
Right? Yeah.
This guy that I don't know has pulled me out to the dance floor, and we get that dance with Fiona Volpe, and the dialogue, he's trying to be discreet and stay calm because they're in this crowd of people. They're on the dance floor with other couples. There's people seated all around the dance floor and at the bar. So he's trying to be discreet. He's trying to be calm. She's saying threatening things to him, and he keeps saying things that it's like they're having two different conversations, but it's because he's trying to keep this situation from being noticed by other people.
Yeah.
And in his voice, there's this the tension, right? Ooh, you could tell like he gets the gravity of the situation. He is not cocky and arrogant that it's a for sure thing. I'm going to get out of this.
I mean, yeah, he's already been hurt. He knows she's going to try and kill him.
Yes.
So he's looking for who's going to shoot next. That's how he's able to turn her at the last second.
Yes.
And she catches the bullet. He knows he's in danger, and he's so aware of all of it that it's just neat to watch his like spider sense sort of tingle and stuff.
Yeah.
Again, Connery's doing all of this stuff with his voice and his face, which is amazing. You realize like 3/4 of this is dubbed later and it's him, doing it. So he had to recreate that performance in a booth.
And it's seamless. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
I do. I love that about Bond at this point in kind of the arc of the character, and Connery, where he is in his career and time of life and his experience with the character and having embodied the character. I just love that. It's like cocky arrogance is great, the arrogance of youth, but nothing beats the confidence and the capability of lived experience. And like, this is a guy who's confident in the situation, but he also knows when no, I need to step lightly here.
Exactly.
I'm in real danger. Knowing your limitations is how you survive,
Speaking of testing limitations, it's a good time to talk about Domino at this point. So we sort of set her up as this mistress and kind of kept woman, who's flirting with danger. And she doesn't realize how deep she is in this shit until, she meets Bond and gets to see all of these things. What did you think of her just as a character, and also kind of juxtaposed against the Bond girl trope of a character and things like that? She's pretty complicated in my book.
She is. I love the Domino character, and Claudine Auger plays her so well because this is a stunning woman.
Yeah.
She's
like a supermodel basically.
Yeah. I mean, she's gorgeous. There's the way she plays this character and the way the character is written. There is like a sweetness to her that some people might mistake for almost like for being naive or innocent, but she's not. There's a world weariness to this. There's a sadness to this character. She's clearly a young woman, and she's been with Largo for a long time. This is a woman who's been through some things.
100%. And
she knows her situation is not good, and there's a fatalism to her. Like, I made my bed and now I have to sleep in it. She doesn't realize the lengths that Largo would go in terms of what happened to her brother's involvement, and that that he could be so easily dispatched and she wouldn't even know it, and that Largo was involved.
Yeah.
But she does have her eyes are open about her general situation. And so it's this great kind of interplay between the aspects of her that is very sweet. And when she talks about her brother, the pilot, Francois, like, you can tell she gets that childish look on her face, kind of like, oh, my big brother who I love so much.
And she's so proud of.
Yes. It really comes through that when people, siblings are bonded in that way, that like the whole sun and moon, everything rests on this older sibling that, that you depend on and grew up with and love.
I mean, that's the only other family she's got in the world.
Yes.
You know, that's the thing is like Largo has stepped in to be kind of slash father figure, you know, and all of that stuff
And
in addition to
daddy.
daddy issues. Yeah, let's just say it.
Right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Domino has those for sure. And then you realize that some of that lives in brother and not so much like sexually and things like that, but that
No.
was a man that she admired and held up and he would never do something like this. And then when she
Right.
finds out it wasn't even him, you know, but it was, you know, like that's she's so naive, but almost purposely so because she's been so hurt as a young
Yes.
person. I felt like she's like, I'm just gonna be naive and just be the kept woman. Fine. You just want me to be pretty? Fine. You know, because I mean, we're gonna admit, this is like the runner-up to Miss World in 1959 or whatever. So she's
Right.
stunningly gorgeous. But and this character knows I'm gorgeous. I can get by on my looks. Fine. You know, I'm just gonna not pay attention to all of that noise over there. I'm just gonna be in this. And, you know, Claudine Arger is so incredible in the performance, but Nikki van der Zyl, who does the voiceover too, and did a lot of these Bond movies, is also great because she's got to match that physical performance
Yes.
with this voice.
Yes.
And that's a lost art of being able to do that these days. I know you're like me, you flipping through Netflix, like, that looks really neat. And it takes about 2 seconds to realize that, oh, we're dubbing from a different language already.
Oh.
And it loses it. Like,
It
I'm
does.
sorry. It really is. It's not an easy thing to do. And I'm good work for the people that are getting the work for it, but sheesh, it misses something. This is a different time and era when people that could perform with their vocal instrument were just as instrumental as the physical instrument.
Yes.
And I don't know, I love this character too because she's so complicated and she's so broken. You know, like Bond finds these women sometimes and they're either like part of a machine or something like that, or they're slightly evil, you know, in their own way,
Right.
you know, and or they're just there to be used, you know, like they don't have the depth. And I feel like Domino as a character sets the bar for a lot of Bond girls going forward because everybody likes to act like Vesper in Casino Royale was the first one that ever like had any brains or anything. And she certainly had the most of all of them the way they were written.
Sure.
But there's a bunch of Bond women throughout the years that could best him just as well, you know, and this, I think it all starts here. It really started with Pussy Galore in some ways, but
Yes.
this is the next extension of that.
But Pussy Galore, I mean, let's be real. And I love Goldfinger.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, don't come for me. No, but there's elements of that character that's a little campy, it's a little pulpy.
I mean, part of it is they had to soften what was in the book too, because we
Right.
weren't ready to talk about that in 1964.
Right.
So, you know, but yeah, no, you're not wrong. There's a lot of it that's changed. Whereas the Domino characters, this is in the book. This is in the story. Now, I don't know who came up with it out of the 4 drunken dudes in the Bahamas,
Right.
but whoever, good call, because it works. And it's also too, I mean, it's a trope now, and you think of it as cheesy, but it totally works that like she wears black and white because her name's Domino, right? But you almost wonder if like Largo didn't give her that name too, you know, for part of
Yeah.
his gambling, you know, fixations and fetishisms, and that he dresses her in that way where she is a thing to be manipulated for my own enjoyment, but inside of her own brain too, she's being 2 different people at the same time, and she's having to resolve it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Just an aside, I love how Bond plays off already knowing that people call her Domino,
Yeah.
which, you know, would have given away that he's inserted himself into this situation to get close to her because of his job. And, you know, and he says, oh, well, it's on your anklet, you know? And so it's like,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of plays it off that way. And it turns into that flirtatious thing that he's, you know, staring at her legs. It's
Well, and I think he knows too that the thing about Domino that's true is that the thing she desires more than anything else is genuine attention.
yes.
And she doesn't get it from really anybody. And so that's his end for her, you know, and you may think it's cold, whatever. This is spycraft. This is how people get turned. You got to find what makes them tick, and you got to talk to them. It's the same as if you're doing sales. You got to figure out what people like.
Right.
You know, or if you're a manager, you got to figure out what your employees respond to, and then you got to play that thing for them. And that's what he's doing here. But you can also tell he's like, I want to get her out of this. Maybe not to keep her,
Yes.
but just she deserves more than this. And she deserves to know that her brother was not this criminal, and because in the book, like I say, it's just, they just pay the pilot off and he tries to shake him down and they kill him anyway, but they were going to do it anyway. So I like it better now that it is an imposter, because then there's some bit of purity still left in Domino when it's all said and done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's just a little thing, but again, it's that kind of little plot that makes this so much fun to rewatch,
Yeah. It all just builds up the character.
Yeah. And I mean, and this is where, we at the part of the plot now where after the Junkanoo, Bond and Leiter have found the Vulcans that are camouflaged. They found the bodies of the crew. And that's when he tells Domino, your brother was killed by Largo. He doesn't even know how deep yet, but he knows that. And that's when he knows, like, hey, I need you to help me get him back for this, right?
Can we just take a moment to acknowledge that Vargas is also comes to be it's got to be an inspiration for similar characters in other films.
Oh, 100%.
Vargas is the guy that looks like kind of a nothing.
Yeah.
But there's something about his face that's kind of creepy.
He looks like one of the aliens in Men in Black, or one of the people in Hush, the Buffy episode.
Yes. Just very nondescript.
Tall, lanky, kind of just sort of hanging out. Yeah.
No, nothing special about the guy except that there's a look on his face that is unsettling. And I love when Largo is introducing Vargas, and he never speaks. Of course, he never speaks. He doesn't talk ever.
No.
When he's introducing him to Bond, he said, well, he doesn't drink and he doesn't smoke and he doesn't, he does it with women. And so very like goody two shoes Adam Ant situation.
Well, he's like, now we call him straight edge,
right.
Like it's also the thing that, like, he doesn't have the world weariness that somebody Bond would have. And that means not the same experience.
He's a killing machine. Yeah.
He's menacing, but he's not crafty. And that's the difference.
No, he's just, he's a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Largo point and shoot Vargas because Vargas has no attachments. He's clear-headed. He's always ready to strike when ordered. And you see a character like this, in The Godfather. You see a character like this in The Assassin in Scarface. There's always like that one guy that you're just like, man, that's something about that guy is not right, but he never speaks. Yeah. And he just kind of goes where you point him. It's the Vargas character. I love it.
Oh no, he's incredibly great. And I'm glad you brought him back up because we hadn't talked about him yet, but no, that's why it's so neat to, again, you think about Largo as the chief villain here, all the tentacles he has. He's almost like an octopus in that way. He's just got all this layer coming around. So, but as it turns out, he's got this whole army of, dive people too. But we're going to introduce the frogmen, the forerunners to the SEALs and the British SAS divers.
It's so epic.
Oh, and so think about this for a second. Just the idea of cinematically having this underwater battle, because this is in the book. This is all from that. When they're trying to lay this out, and they're like, so I'm just thinking, like, if I'm Terrence Young, the director. So let me get this straight. We're going to do a battle at the end where no one can talk. It was just going to be music, and it's just going to be basically ballet underwater with knives and spear guns. Huh? He's got to figure out how to do that.
And he did.
And he did. That's what's so amazing about it, is that the climax is spectacular.
Oh my God, I love it so much. So I'm going to take this moment just to say, I love sea battles in movies. I always have. There's something about it. And so in this, we get all of the intense underwater physical grappling. And people are shooting spear guns and people are getting knifed and air hoses are getting cut and just this tangle of bodies in the water and the bubbles and the debris and the sharks. And it's just crazy. And then we also get the firepower of the battle cruiser coming in and firing. And then there's Spectre men firing, and it's just so much going on. It's just so good.
It's just a lot of moving pieces. And that's what's wild, is that you have all of this stuff happening, but it never drags. It never gets boring. There's so much cool stuff to look at. And you, I mean, I had to think about it after I watched it this time. I was like, there's no talking. Like
No.
there's not a ton of talking usually in these big battle sequences with Bond, but there's always some, because they're not underwater necessarily or in space or some nonsense. This though relies entirely on the score, one, which is out of this world, and the choreography of all the
Yes.
stunts happening, and just the little sound design of the scream, the swish of the spirit
Yes.
gun, and because I mean, if you don't know much about spirit guns, y'all, and I don't know a ton about them, but I know how they work. They're big industrial rubber bands that fire these bolts through. So it would make a tong sound, but how do you put that underwater? Well, the sound design
Yeah.
people figured that out, and it's the whole scale of the conflict is what I love, because it's not just Bond versus the world. Bond and the Navy and the British Navy are backing him up. I
Yes.
love that it involves all those other people, because that's the thing about Goldfinger everybody forgets is how many hundreds of other people got involved in that. All those soldiers at Fort Knox, there's a lot of other people behind the scenes. And so many times the Bond movies come down to just Bond having to defuse the bomb and shoot everybody at the same
Right.
time. And what this one realizes is like, nope, Bond is there for one thing: disarm the bombs. And in his own head, kill Largo. And maybe not in that order at all times,
Right.
because he definitely wants to kill Largo. But again, I just love the whole thing and the way it plays out. It's incredible to watch, and it's one of those things too. It's on YouTube. You can just look at that scene on YouTube, and it's so much fun to just watch, because I have to think like how long that took to do. And to get right, and then to edit it in a way that it keeps it going. It's just tremendous piece of filmmaking.
Oh yeah. I mean, like you said, all those moving pieces.
I mean, you have
And
to
it-
coach that through. Everybody's got to know,
Yes.
I'm swimming here, I stab that guy, I shoot this thing. Yeah,
And the
everybody's got to know
practical
their
concerns,
part.
the safety concerns, how long
Yeah.
people can be underwater safely.
Right. You got to teach
at
all these
what
people how to
depth?
dive.
Yes. And there was like, this was real dangerous stunt work.
Yeah, there's also actual sharks
Yes.
in the water. So if we putting fake blood out, that might, I mean, they don't do color, but they might sniff that and go, what is that? And just come look. That's the thing you don't want is a
incredible.
curious shark, because sharks don't have hands. They have mouths.
Right.
It's the last thing you want is a curious shark. So yeah, I mean, and by all accounts, like they hired a lot of, ex-military people and divers and things to do this. So they cut that training in half, but you still got to get those people to now here's how to do that on TV and make it look good, y'all. Here's how that's going to look good in the movie theater. And I can only imagine what this looked like in 1965 on a big screen. Someday I would love to see this on a big screen. I don't know if
Oh,
it's going to
yeah.
get the re-release or not, but we're doing a lot of those now with the anniversary releases. I kind of hope it does, because I would love to see this on a big screen and just to see this.
The spectacle.
Yeah, because it's unbelievable. Just what it looks like and how it goes down. So it's a great use too of the scenery of the film. The Bahamas, the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
We got to talk about the end though, because we already talked about the hydrofoil and how cool that is coming out of the Disco Volante, and that Bond tracks Largo to that, and they get into like the fist fight of all fist fights while this boat is doing double time. And it seems cheesy now because they speed the film up and stuff, but you realize that's what they were working with at the time. I never get lost in that. I think that just adds more tension to this thing, because how do you steer this out of control boat and fight this guy at the same time?
Outnumbered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The boat is just flying, and there's rocks, and you got henchmen on your back, and it's just chaos in this enclosed space. And that's another thing about the use of the boat, is that close quarters fighting, where you kind of have to use, there is no retreat.
There's nowhere else
You're
to go.
in it
Yeah.
with this person in this very closed space. And how do you use that space to your advantage?
Yeah. It's the one thing that, well, not the one thing. It's one thing that the It remake movies I felt got right is what a rock fight in a ditch really looks like and
Right.
really feels like. It seems like it's out in the open order, but it's really just you and several other people in a small little spot. And when you have small enclosed spaces, when you do the fight in the phone booth, you know, it has to be staged correctly. And it again, we've already had this huge battle sequence, right? We've already disarmed the bombs. Now this is about revenge. This is I'm going to not only I'm taking this guy out because if he got away, yeah, Largo's taking the L today or whatever, but he's resourceful enough that he would come back again. So
Oh yeah.
he's
Well, he's
yeah.
number 2 in the Spectre organization.
Yeah. So he's got his own problems to deal
Yeah.
with there anyway, but he's not done.
No.
And so we're really going to cut the head off the snake when we take him out. But what's wild is that Bond is actually reeling from all the damage he's taken in this movie and previously too. So he's not winning the fight. He's not doing
No.
well at all. In fact, he's
No.
about to die.
He is within seconds of being shot at point blank range.
Yeah. And you're not going to live that. I mean, he's done. And that you hear that again, that spear gun sound. And it's like, it's the great moment in wrestling when they come back in the last second.
Yes.
The tag team partner gets back in and knocks out the foe. It's so great that Domino shoots him in the back.
I love it so much.
It's so cold, but it's so perfect.
Yeah, because that first time, because there are all the frogmen and the Navy and all these, there's plenty of allies that are out in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So for a second, it's like, oh, did someone, did one of the CIA guys or one of the soldiers make it onto the boat? No, no. The person who most benefits on a personal level from Largo being taken out, Domino, gets to take that shot.
Well, and we should talk about it too. She got freed because his nuclear physicist for hire turns to the good and unties her.
It was a step too far.
Yeah, it was like, well, I'll only go so far, but I'm not gonna.
That guy. What? And the kind of the trope of the scientist who gets wrangled into these things because there's funding for the science and opportunity to experiment or study or build whatever scientific projects that they've been cooking up, and then to reach a point where you're like, oh, I got in with these people, but these people they're off on a trip that I am not.
Yeah,
I'm not cool with. We've crossed a line.
Well, I feel like that's also commentary too on the military at the time and government scientists and things like that. And we know this now because the brilliant Oppenheimer film and all the things been written about him is they invented compartmentalization during that, where you only knew what you needed to know and nothing else during that time, so that people didn't get too wrapped in their own head about what it is. And this is, I feel like, is a commentary on see how that doesn't work. Or maybe why it works, because if they did know, they would all go, we can't have this, right?
Right. There's a point for each person where they're going to say, nah, I won't go that far. I'm not willing to go there. And I think too, and it comes at a point where Domino is being tortured for information, burned with cigarettes, and then having it cooled with ice, which would also burn, and he comes just right in the nick of time. And that too, you get the sense of this guy had probably been thinking about getting out. And this was the moment, like, okay, yeah, I can't.
Yeah, this is we're not gonna do this anymore. Yeah. But I love that though, because I love that her next thing is like, thanks, I'm not getting off the boat because I've got business to finish.
Yes.
And it's glad that it works out to save our hero. But really, honestly, I don't think Domino cares what happens to James Bond. She
not really
cares that Largo's dead. And that's what's awesome about this, is that he gets it exactly the way he deserves it.
Yes.
Stabbed in the back, by one of his many victims. And
Yeah.
it's great. It's an incredible kill. So and it's not the first nor the last time you'll see Bond get bailed out by somebody else. That's kind of the fun part of James Bond is when people
Yes.
bail him out and he's like, thank God. But then they've got to like get the boat out and they can't because he's wrecked the controls. So they get off the sucker, and just in time to and I love Largo's body's hanging over the wheels.
Yeah.
It crashes into the rocks and got to have the big explosion. But I love that they get out into the big life raft at the end. It's
And
so
then
much
get
fun.
picked up with the,
Yeah, the skyhook
big
thing.
balloon. I
That
love
was
it.
awesome. Yeah, no, it's one of those things you're like, we have those, and of course we do. Yes, and I seem to remember Nolan talking about that as one of the many inspirations for the hook scene in Dark Knight that
Oh,
he has
sure.
and stuff. But because you've seen it in a lot of movies, but this is definitely one that like, oh yeah, I remember that from this movie. Because it's a great way to end too, and just been a rousing time the whole time. So
I think so.
that's the wild thing about this movie is that it doesn't really let up, and that's I. There's a credit to go to a lot of people for that, I'm sure. But let's get into that now. We'll do final thoughts, recommendations, popcorn ratings for Thunderball. So, what are yours, Carmelita?
Oh my God. I just love this. I think, and it doesn't get the love that some of the other Connery Bond films get. And everyone, hey, different strokes for different pokes. People are entitled to feel about it the way they want to feel about it and like what you like. I love this. I think it's so epic, so cinematic. I think it's Connery at his best Bond in terms of embodying the character and the performance he's giving. It's just amazing. All those practical effects and epic set pieces. This is an extra large popcorn with really fresh, warm butter. It's just, I love this. It's infinitely rewatchable. It's a good time.
I got to tell you, the thing about Thunderball that just sticks with me is that it had this impossible task of how do we follow what had been the biggest thing in Bond. And it was really one of the better stories too. Goldfinger's an incredible story.
Yeah. And it was
And
meant to be the first Bond film.
right, yeah, and you think now if they had tried this, Terrence Young talks about, he's like, I'm glad we didn't have the money for it because it would have
Yes.
flopped. He said, because if we'd have tried to do that with the Dr. No budget, there's no way.
No way.
They spent like $1 million with Dr. No, which is nothing, to do the movie for the scale they did, which is why they did Dr. No. They felt like it was smaller and they could manage it. And he's right. They would have never been able to do this, because the scope of this is something cooked up by a lot of people with a lot of ideas going on. You can feel it,
Yes.
and it's also people that understood good action and how to do that. And then Fleming gave it a life by giving it a through line. And the thing that holds over from the book to the movie is that this Bond is weary and kind of beaten up a little bit. And that just makes the journey he goes on even more impressive and interesting. Surrounded by all of these other colorful and wild characters, and that all have their own agency and interest, and then put with a great score, incredible cinematography, all world action. Thunderball deserves to be spoken of in the same light that we talk about Goldfinger, that we talk about Casino Royale, that we talk about For Your Eyes Only, some of the the big greatest Bonds, GoldenEye, all these things. It deserves its place on the mantle with them as well. And I think about it too from my life of having seen this movie for so many years, and I came back to this one a lot even before I was doing podcasts, when I just wanted to watch a Bond movie, I just want to have some fun. Well, Thunderball just hits all the marks. This is the Friday night opening weekend tentpole, extra large popcorn, fresh butter, the whole nine. I'm sitting dead center on the screen kind of movie all the way.
Yay!
Yeah, I there was never a doubt. I mean, I was like, I honestly thought, I was like, I might be too high on this one. Glad to know I'm not, because I love this movie. And I'll go back to what I said in the beginning too. Everyone loves Dream Warriors, and I get why. But I'll sit here and tell you right now, like, Dreams Master is just as good, and in some
Right.
ways it's more fun.
Don't sleep on the next one,
Yeah, don't sleep on 4. Rennie Harlin's not a bum. Like, he knew what he was doing. Especially then, he was super hungry then. I mean, like, and again, they got Terrence Young back for this, and he has the right sensibilities for it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
things. And they wanted a guy Hamilton. He just said no. He was exhausted from doing Goldfinger, and I get it. So they got the right bit of everybody here to make this work,
Absolutely.
and that's one reason this is one of the biggest Bonds, of all time, and it's one of the best ones too. Again, I would put Connery's performance in this up against anything that he did with the character. And what's fun is he did it again all those years later with Never Say Never Again. Now, we'll review that eventually here on Film Strip and things. But do you have any, just passing thoughts on Never Say Never Again?
I mean, I'm just gonna put this on Front Street. I've only seen it like once or twice.
Yeah, it's not one I revisit.
It's not one I revisit.
No.
And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of an odd.
It's wild to watch a remake of a movie with the same lead actor doing it, but
It is.
but many years later, almost 20 years later.
It's just a completely different feel, completely different vibe.
Well, it was also a very different world. Like
Yes,
the
absolutely.
1982 versus 1965 are very different worlds that we're inhabiting, and the movie tries to account for that. But we'll save that for another day on Film Strips.
Yeah.
Well, Carmelita, this has been an absolute blast, as it always is, talking movies with you here. So tell folks how they can follow you and keep up with all the cool stuff that you're doing.
It was a pleasure, my friend. Always fun to talk movies with you. I love it. So I'm on Twitter and I'm on Blue Sky, and I post what I'm watching on Letterboxd. Same handle every place, at Carmelita Says.
Fantastic. That'll be linked in the show description. Of course, folks, you can follow this show on social media at Film Strip Pod. We post announcements about upcoming shows. We try to tag our friends' podcasts, repost them. 400 plus episodes at this point into it. There's something there for everyone. There's our entire Bond cinematic series that we've done this year, where we revisited each era of Bond with another person.
It's
you can
been
go
so
back and
fun to
those.
listen.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun putting that together, and really appreciate all the guys for jumping in and doing those with me. And it's been a blast. And while the round table did not happen this year, maybe we can find a way to pull that together once they get this new Bond thing off the ground, now that Amazon owns it. And now we've got somebody else fun to bring into the room as well. So I'm glad we got to knock this one down. It's a lot of fun. But again, folks, we appreciate the support. Find this show wherever you find your podcast. And if you can, leave us a positive review. It helps other people find the show, and it makes us feel really good about ourselves. So until next time, thank you for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.